Hi students, this is the last video for this week and we're returning to our study of Constantine. In the last video we talked about Constantine's rise to power, how he comes to control the empire in the west after defeating Maxentius at the Battle of the Milvian Bridge in 312. Then we talked about the beginnings of Constantine's relationship with Christianity. Why is it that Constantine promotes Christianity? Why is it that he makes it legal to be a Christian after decades of persecution under Diocletian? And I explained how doing this for political reasons doesn't really make sense in the context of the Roman Empire, in the context of the history of Christianity, in the context of Constantine's career. And so there's certainly an emotional drive behind Constantine's support for Christianity. Perhaps this is connected to his mother, who was a professing Christian, or something else linked with his experiences of Christianity. Nevertheless, I explained that at this point in his career, Constantine was still a pagan, but he was also a pagan who was skeptical of traditional Roman paganism. And he was a man who, it seems, had a vision for the future of the Roman Empire. That he was someone who had the ability to build on the pragmatism of Diocletian's reforms to remodel the empire, what is going to be the late antique Roman and then the late antique Byzantine Empire. And so we're going to finally see this in this video when we focus on the founding of Constantinople. So we're not entirely sure what Constantine thought of Christianity at this time, but we know that in 324 he accused the other Roman emperor, the ruler of the Eastern Roman Empire, who had also survived this civil war. Constantine accused him of violating the Edict of Milan and continuing to persecute Christians. Now, it seems as though Constantine planned to go after this emperor anyway, that Constantine always saw him as too dangerous a rival to be allowed to rule the empire. But what's perhaps interesting here is that Constantine uses the Edict of Milan as a pretext for this political goal. Constantine accuses this emperor Licinius of violating the Edict of Milan, and he attacks and defeats him. And so in 324, Constantine no longer only rules the Western Roman Empire, but rules the entire Roman Empire, east and west, and he's reunited the empire under his leadership. Now, Constantine had found Rome disappointing. He found that the Roman elites disapproved of him. He found that they were not particularly interested in him, not particularly interested in Christianity. What I tell people to do is to look at a map of the oldest churches in Rome, and you'll see they're all built around the edges of the city. And that's because none of the Roman elite at this time were interested in supporting Christianity and allowing Christian churches to be built in the center of the city. So they had to be built on the outside. And so Constantine recognizes the wisdom of Diocletian's decision to relocate the capital and the heart of the Roman Empire in the eastern half of the empire. But again, he has a vision that extends beyond Diocletian. He doesn't just take a city in the eastern half and say, this is the capital now. He builds an entire new capital city, named after him, named Constantinople. Constantine, you remember, is a very successful general. He remembers a highly defensible location on the Black Sea that's centrally located with great access both to Asia and to Europe. And it's here that he builds the new Rome. He builds a new Rome, which is named after him, which marks his reforging of the Roman Empire after the period of the 3rd century crisis, and which incorporates Christianity into the empire. So this is a computer-generated image of what Constantinople would have looked like after it had been built. Now the Christian churches are not on the outskirts, in the suburbs of the city. They're built in the heart of the empire. So now we have a new Rome, a new capital city of the Roman Empire, but it's in the east, which has survived the 3rd century crisis in much better shape than the West, and it incorporates Christianity. And so here we begin to see the building blocks of the medieval period. building blocks of the Middle Ages. We see that the Roman Empire still exists and is still very powerful, but is in decline and is shifting towards the east. And so this is the first of the three civilizations that will make up the medieval world, the medieval Mediterranean that we're going to be studying. And we are also going to see that this Roman Empire, this reforged Roman Empire following the reigns of Diocletian and Constantine, is going to incorporate Christianity into the empire. Christianity is going to play a much more important role in the empire than it has previously. And so these changes, the movement of the empire to the east, the incorporation of Christianity, the increased profile of Christianity, these are important, crucial building blocks of the world of the Middle Ages that we are going to be studying. And so I want you to keep those developments in mind. Just in terms of review, thinking back over our lecture content from this week, we began by looking at periodization. I explained how periodization is something that's useful for historians. Doesn't really change the lives of the people at the time as immediately as it happens. I explained how we're going to study the Middle Ages, and we're going to study the world of late antiquity, which is a transition from the ancient world to the Middle Ages. And then we looked at the context in which the world of late antiquity develops. It's a Mediterranean world that's dominated by the Roman Empire, but has new and powerful external rivals in Persia and in the Gothic tribes, and that the Roman Empire itself then experiences a period of profound crisis during the 3rd century, a demographic crisis, a political crisis, and an economic crisis. And this crisis, in the end, is resolved by the reforms of Diocletian. Political reforms to increase the power of the emperor, to move the capital city of the Roman Empire, and to reevaluate and reform the tax structure of the Roman Empire. Constantine is the visionary who builds on these reforms to build a new capital, to incorporate a new religion into this new empire. And the great question mark that we are left with is the relationship between the Emperor Constantine and this religion of Christianity. Who owes more to who in 330? And how is Christianity going to deal with having a public role? How is the emperor going to maintain control over this new empire? So these are the questions that I want you to think about. Hope you've enjoyed the material this week, and I will see you next week.